Well, hi, good morning, and thank you for joining me in my shop here. Today is September 6th, 2024, and I'm about to start on this Grundig record player you see in front of you here. This has come out of a beautiful looking console with a big Grundig receiver in it, AM, FM, and 2 shortwave bands, and all that seems to be working pretty good. But this record player, when I tested it in the console, the platter wouldn't turn. Don't know why. I didn't do any more than that. I just saw the platter wouldn't turn when it was turned on. Actually, I noticed this. The reject button appears to be stuck. It doesn't seem to be going far. Okay, so either there's something very seriously wrong with the motor in here, or it's just more of the usual lubrication issues. Probably the case. So that's the first thing we want to find out is about the motor. So to power it up, I had to disconnect the wires from under here and leave them behind. But I have an alternative cord here I'm going to install temporarily so we can operate the record player. And obviously signs of oil being needed. So I want to get underneath this. Now the tone arm is kind of free on here. It's going to flop around and go all over the place. I did look with just a simple magnifier. There are needles on the cartridge here. So I just turned that to protect them from what's going to happen next. Let's see. Flip this like this. Okay, so the connection is platter gonna fall off? Nope. Okay. So the connection is made into here. Now, wow. It's supposed to look like that? Good question. Let's see if I can get this on camera. I may have to use a different camera to get a good look at this. Okay, so you're looking down into the connector, and wires are coming in this way, and wires will be coming in this way too. So for instance, the screws down in here are for these wires, and these screws are for these wires. And if I wiggle this, now often the clamping part that's down in here is actually loose in the holder. So maybe that's not a sign of anything being loose, but wow, does it look like it? Okay, so I'm going to put my wires into here. No, that doesn't look right. You know what? This was upside down when I was looking at it. Now it's, or rather, it was right side up when I was looking at it, and I've got it in my head that the wires would go in. They really go in here. That's why this one's loose. I've backed it off. Perhaps. Smaller screwdriver here. Okay, that one's in. I don't think the wires are loose. I think the little bracket is, let's just check. Oh boy. That's kind of odd. So what, this black wire here, which is coming into this folder heading for this wire, and the screw is missing in here. There is no screw clamping it. Oh my gosh, the wire going to come right out. That's a spider, a couple of dead spiders there. Maybe they took the screw, so the screw is actually missing from here. And that might explain why the motor didn't turn. If this isn't making good enough contact, no power is getting in. I'm going to steal a spare screw from over here. I wonder. So anything that has a vibration in it can shake parts loose. And that's a magnet. There's another one. It's not magnetic, not a magnetic screw. How are you going to get it out of there? It's not magnetic. Ooh, that's how. Okay, we'll drop this in over here. So maybe that's the case. You don't think a record player is shaking much. I mean, they can't shake much. I don't know. Got me as to why would there be no screw there at all? Check all of these. It's tight. Okay, so we're ready to power up the turntable. Now, if the turntable should, the motor comes on and operates, I guess we can guess that it was the connector here, which is something I've never really seen before. So this is a Telefunken TW501. It's got some other number here. While we have this upside down, let's take a look. Here's some instructions on the wiring. You have a 220 arrangement and a 110 arrangement. And this is, we're on the 110 arrangement. Pretty sure, yep. Matches, of course. We have two capacitors, and from experience, I think these are bad capacitors. They don't last long. We've got a couple of resistors here. I'm sure there's no problem with those. I'd be very surprised. Now we want to look at how this cord is done. I'll show you why. I was just a little disappointed to find this kind of connector on the end here. So you can see there's three prongs in there. One is left channel, right channel, and a ground. And probably the ground is probably the middle pin, and the two channels are on the outside. Probably. Now what's amazing is I have a lot of connectors of sorts like this with, you know, pins in them and that. I guess more commonly used in European equipment and North American. I went through my boxes of junk, and would you believe I found these. That's exactly the same. And here's the beauty. I got this one. So this means I'll be able to connect it fairly easily if I just wire up this plug. I'll be able to connect the stereo, the record player, to my sound system that you're listening to right now, and we'll be able to listen to it that way. Otherwise I'd be using clip leads, not that big a deal. But so I'm going to make a little cable up here. I happen to have a long audio cable with the ends already bared off. So I'm going to put that together. But for now, we have to get the motor going before we bother with that. If the motor doesn't work, then we're going nowhere with it. Now, why didn't this control move anything? So it's certainly going after a lot of stuff. And we work along here. It's moving this apparatus. This is some kind of a spring here. It's trying to move this piece here. Trying to pull on this rod. This one seems to be the one that's not really moving. This one comes back under the mechanism here somewhere. I can see the little piece moving here. Are my fingers pointing? But this is not moving. So probably this is frozen up. Here's the on-off switch here. And the on-off lever is down in here, I think, this part here. So turning this should be trying to move this bar, I believe. It's not moving it. So it just looks like everything is stuck here. try turning this big wheel. See the big wheel in the middle with the geared teeth? It's got some movement, but it's very heavy. Okay, try and move it further. Well, it moves, and I can see the, you can't see it I think, but the platter is spinning while I was doing that. So let's put it through its motions here. I'm turning the platter as it goes. So the platter is like a huge gear, you know, it's this big, it's driven, it's this big, it's driven on the outside, and then it drives this mechanism from the inside, and that's a huge gear ratio. So everything's moving. I think if we manage to get the motor turning, everything's going to go. Okay, there we are in the neutral spot. There's the motor. Interesting looking motor. They have the windings on right outside here, like that. Motor turns. Doesn't feel bad at all. Okay, this is a bit of a different mechanism in here I'm not used to seeing. This is probably the speed control. The way they've done it here, when you see a ramping part like this, you know it's lifting something up and down, and what it's lifting almost certainly is this idle wheel here. Let's turn the speed control and see it go. Yeah, so I don't know if you can see it, but the wheel is coming up. It's up all the way now. Down, down. So what? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, we have to get it up. It's hard to get it up onto the 4th setting. So, all working. So I'm not saying anything here that's, oh, it's broken. No, I don't see anything like that. So with the power available and with this wire screwed in tight, let's flip this over. Be a little careful of the let the toner fall on my arm. Okay, what's this? So this just came flopping out from underneath the toner arm. I remember seeing it shoved up here. This is it looks like a piece of material with foam on it, and the foam doesn't do well over time. In many cases, the foam's a material that often fails completely. Okay, so we got this on here. Let me just make sure the way I've supported the record player isn't interfering with the mechanism underneath. Nope, all clear. Okay, now I'm not plugging this straight into the wall. See what happens. I'm going through a system that I can control the amount of power reaching this. Not too scared, but so the way this works, and I have to explain this at the start of my video series, I'm using a dim bulb system being a little generous for it. You see these 2 light bulbs here, both are screwed in. These are incandescent lights with wire filaments. Do you remember those things from way back when? And what I can do is I can direct the power to my outlet here through those light bulbs. So the electricity getting through, in this case to the motor here, will have to go through these light bulbs on the way. What that does is it restricts the amount of power that's making it all the way to the project. Some of the power is going to be used up in the light bulbs. I can unscrew one light bulb and make it more restrictive. We have both in, less restrictive. Now over here on my ultra fancy control panel, I have 2 switches. One is just turns things on. If I flip the switch down, power arrives here through those bulbs. If I flip it up, then power does not go through the bulbs. we then connect this straight to the generators at Niagara Falls. Or maybe it's the nuclear plant in Pickering. Or it could be the Bruce nuclear plant. I don't know which plant we'd be hooked up to. Or it could be the small falling water hydro generator that's not far from Aurelia. That's one of the earliest electrical generators built in Ontario. And it only provides, I think, 6 megawatts. I think it's not very much. One of those guys is going to power this thing. Okay, so we're about to turn on the power. Let's just make sure that this is set in the neutral place. And it is. You see how the record player is just spinning? Spinning around. It's loose. It's spin in either direction the same way. What's happened is the idler wheel under here has been pulled off, or it's no longer being pulled in to the edge of the wheel. You'll see there's a drive wheel here. It's driving this rim. That's why this is called a rim drive record player. Comes with a bunch of problems. So one of them is when you stop the record player, you can't leave this wheel pushed in place. It's pushing up against here, and it's pushing up against the motor. The motor spindle is sticking up somewhere in here. And you have that wheel pushing against the little skinny spindle. And if you stop the record player and leave it like that, you make a divot in the rubber wheel. Next time the wheel goes around, thump, 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 and that's what you end up with. So these record players have a mechanism which will release the pressure on the drive wheel when the record player is in its off position. And the one way to recognize that is to do this. And it should spin free. I'll be able to demonstrate later at some point when the mechanism is still under pressure, pushing in here. You'll see that you can't spin this, or if you do, it's very hard to spin because you're dragging the motor and stuff around. So anytime you finish playing a record, this should be like this, and that would happen automatically, and you shouldn't even have to worry about it. Okay, next thing we're going to do is, since we know this is free, we're going to apply power through the light bulbs. Now you may have noticed this voltmeter jump over here. This is not an accurate meter, but it indicates roughly the amount of voltage that's on the box here. There's no current being drawn by the motor. It's not running. The lights are not on because there's no current being drawn through them. The voltage is sitting here though. It's 119.8, 120 volts today. Sounds a little high to me. I'm just going to knock it down. I have another device here that controls the voltage, which I don't normally use. 115. Okay, that sounds just perfect. Okay, let's get this guy going. So normally you would push this and it would start. Okay, this is on 16. Let's put it on 33. So we're not going to get anywhere. Now, forcing these things, of course, it's never recommended to force anything. These are relatively rugged spots, so you could push a little bit with it. Push too hard, and those rods I showed you are going to go like that. And then you're in trouble after that. It would take a fair bit of pressure. So this doesn't seem to be getting anywhere at all. We have gotten nowhere with it. Okay, power off. One of the safety procedures I follow about 80% of the time is I try to remember to unplug projects all the time. So, I mean, there's no way power is getting to this thing while the plug is out. We need to look at that switch arrangement and the mechanism, or the, yeah, mechanism. Not quite what I wanted to have happen there. There we go. The switch is here. We really need to look more closely at it. So I'm going to get a different camera going, one that will allow us to get a little closer. We'll try the autofocus on this, but it often just annoys me, really. Okay, we want to look at the on-off switch. Wow, look at that, focused right up. So you see a lever, and you see a spring clip on it. pulling back at it, and you can see it's dark. It's very dark in there. Can you see there's a 2-finger thing? It's like this. There's 2 fingers sticking out. I think that's 2 fingers. We need more light. Everything is black here. Let's just try this. Okay, so the 2 fingers are the brown piece, and you can see the lever pointing into the brown piece. Now I'm going to work that the on-off switch. What happened here? I'm going to get a good position. There we are. Now I'm looking at the screen. I've got the camera turned in a funny way. Let's turn it this way, so my motions don't make sense here. Okay, we can see it now. So I'm working the switch. You see the thing is, that lever is not moving. The spring-loaded lever is not moving at all. Okay, let me reef on this thing a little hard. That's about as hard as I dare go. Not moving at all. No, it's stuck. This is stuck in place. Here's the rod that's supposed to push it underneath all this. So now let's look at this mechanism here for lubrication. Well, I've got the close-up camera going. Do you see any? Does anybody see any lubrication? Like this piece here is going to slide down, and this surface should be lubricated. There's nothing. There's nothing left. And I apologize for the terrible focusing of this camera. There's just nothing left. So all these parts that are dry, I noticed it with the speed mechanism. These should have grease all over them, usually do. Dried up grease, usually. There's nothing on this. Right in here. Okay, there we go. This big piece here slides up and down on these little skids, and there should be grease all along here. Well, and there's none. Well, there's a little bit. So this is a case of I'm too dry. I'm too dry. I can't work. I'm stuck together. So a really handy fluid to use in this case. There's 2 I like to use: alcohol. Rubbing alcohol, obviously, and WD-40. So the thing about the rubbing alcohol is you can kind of spill it almost anywhere. It's not dangerous really on your hands, and it evaporates almost entirely, or virtually entirely, and so that's kind of a good thing. And along the way, it can dissolve stuck stuff. Now another one is WD-40. Benefit of WD-40 is it also has good solvents in it, and it lubricates things. It has a bit of oil in it. There are some parts which should never be lubricated. So parts that you discover that are really loose like this, probably not meant to ever be lubricated. There's a thing called a, well, I don't know about this record player, but many record players use a technique called a velocity trigger, which triggers at the end of the record, causes the mechanism to pick up the tone arm and return it, and shut everything off. That sensing is done usually with very light parts, not oiled or greased. They usually run right down the center here, but this, every record player is a little bit different. So I'm just poking around while I'm talking, just looking at things and seeing how things move. There's similarities from one record player to another, but they're not identical. There's quite a bit of difference between brands, and even between the same brand but model after model. The engineers and designers were thinking of better and simpler mechanisms, cheaper to build. And okay, so let's focus in on the one that seems to be really the problem, which is the on-off switch. It's really hidden down under here. Can't really see what it's pivoting on. I'd like to know where to shoot some oil. This is part of it down here too. But none of it wants to move. Getting it to move a little bit is a big help. Oh man, it's just right stuck. Okay, so it looks like I'm pushing hard. I'm not pushing that hard. In a situation like this, where we cannot really see what is going on, maybe we can. Maybe I can get a look up through here with the other camera. Give it another try. So I'm going to have to fix the focus on this camera. We can't continue like this. So let me just get it set like that. Just bear with me 1 second. What I'm going to do is I'm calling up the dialog box for that camera. And then I'm just going to click off the autofocus on it. And it looks okay the way it is. Good. Now we can continue without it acting wonky. So it's the lowest part. It's that arm you see with the spring grabbing it. So I think I see where the pivot point is. Where's that in? Back there. Let me grab the pointer. So there's something right back in here. No, that's not a pivot point. And well, there's a good chance it's pivoting right on this main shaft here. So I don't really see anything else. I mean, spraying some oil up in here and trying to get it to penetrate. Oh, wait a minute, there's nothing there. Oh, no, there's nothing there. It comes over here. If I could move it, it'd be easy to figure out where the pivot point is, but I don't think it's pivoting in the main shaft. I think it's back here somewhere. Whoops, back here. Let me get more light on it. Here. This isn't enough light. Well, where else can it pivot? There's got to be that little... Now that looks like a rivet. I don't want it to pivot on a rivet. If you have a rivet, then there's often a shaft that it's pivoting on. Oh, down under here. Whoops. I'm not going to get under there. Okay, so this is a job for alcohol, and the reason is I can be very generous with it, and my alcohol is not here at the moment, so I'm going to stop for a bit and get the alcohol. Okay, so a good question to ask is, do I know for sure that this is the problem that I'm working on here? Don't spill it, Jim. Pretty sure, because we know this rod is supposed to go back and forth and operate the switch. We know nothing's being switched on. We know the rod doesn't move at all, and we know it's a typical problem in record players that things get stuck. Okay, so I'm putting a fair bit of alcohol in there. And now we have to leave it for a while. Let the alcohol do its thing. I wish I could move it just even the slightest amount. Looking for some way to lever it. I don't see one. Just the slightest movement can make it a lot easier for solvents to get in. Wow, it's just stuck solid. So another alternative here would be to apply heat. You gotta be very careful, you know, when you put pressure on things, you start putting pressure, like I was pushing all over the place here. My arm was pushing down here. That's an accident waiting to happen. So the other one is if the screwdriver slides, I'll stab myself. Not moving a bit. Wow. So another alternative would be to put some heat on there, but not while the alcohol is sitting in there. And how do I know the alcohol is even getting to the right place? I really don't. Okay, we'll give it time. I have some. Okay, so a good question to ask is, do I know for sure that this is the problem that I'm working on here? Don't spill it, Jim. Pretty sure, because we know this rod is supposed to go back and forth and operate the switch. We know nothing's being switched on. We know the rod doesn't move at all, and we know it's a typical problem in record players that things get stuck. Okay, so I'm putting a fair bit of alcohol in there. And now we have to leave it for a while. Let the alcohol do its thing. I wish I could move it just even the slightest amount. Looking for some way to lever it. I don't see one. Just the slightest movement can make it a lot easier for solvents to get in. Wow, it's just stuck solid. So another alternative here would be to apply heat. You gotta be very careful, you know, when you put pressure on things, you start putting pressure, like I was pushing all over the place here. My arm was pushing down here. That's an accident waiting to happen. So the other one is if the screwdriver slides, I'll stab myself. Not moving a bit. Wow. So another alternative would be to put some heat on there, but not while the alcohol is sitting in there. And how do I know the alcohol is even getting to the right place? I really don't. Okay, we'll give it time. I have some. It's only been a couple of minutes. I haven't left the shop. I just pushed this back and forth a few times, and can you see how easy it suddenly just came loose? Now it's not quite got the full travel yet, but now that it's this loose, the solvent's going to go in, and it's going to loosen up the old. Look at that, eh? We're cooking with gas now. Okay, it's still not normal, but it's well on its way. I'm going to give it another generous dosing here. And then we'll work this right away. There is a snapback feature here. I'm not sure of that. I mean, there is a spring here pulling on this. Supposed to be pulling it this way. But wear the on-off switch out. Okay, so we're in a position now we can turn it on and off anyway. And we can manually move this. If it's not snapping to its right position, we can move it there. So a lot of these controls, I'm swinging down here, let's say this is it. You push it, you get to a certain point, and the mechanism starts, and when you let go, it comes back and stops. And when you turn it off, or it turns itself off, it comes all the way back to the starting point. So you go chunk, you let go, chunk, it comes back, sits there until the record player goes to turn off, either by you or by the mechanism, and then it goes back here. That's usually how these things go. So there's a spring that wants, this last part is usually spring loaded. So I think that's what's going on here, only there's no way it's snapping back. But you can return it. I can see this control piece is moving all over the place when I'm doing this. It's pushing this lever. So if this is the start, this is probably causing the velocity trigger to engage in some way, which I'm not going to explain. We can give this guy a go now. I think we're in a position we can turn him on and see what he does. Let's flip him over. Again, it's very important if you're going to put it up on a stand like this, that you make sure that the stand is not interfering with any of the mechanisms. Okay, this, again, I have the needle turned in such a way that it's protected while we're goofing around here. So this is what we're doing. That's off. That's on. And you're supposed to let go, it should snap. It kind of almost looks like it's snapping back. But let's see what happens. That would be off. That would be off. Okay. Plug this guy back in. That solvent action is going to go on for quite a long time. So we'll make it looser and looser as we mess around here. Plug it in. Have to plug it in. Okay, it's in the middle of a run here. Let's get it through it. So if you notice, it picked up and then just set back down. That's because it thinks there's no record to play. Now, how does it know that? There's no record to play. How did it know that? It knew that because this arm is down all the way. If you have a record sitting on here, the arm is up about this much. And that's enough to cause a mechanical action underneath. Tells the record player there's a record up here. On the last record drops off, like you could put 4 or 5 records here. The last one drops off. This drops low. When it drops low, it triggers the end of record process or something like that, and this guy won't even come over. So now it's turning freely. You can hear something in there. It doesn't turn backwards, so it's not quite free. It was freer before. I don't know. Uh-oh, here we go again. I accidentally triggered the whole thing, so we gotta go around. If you wanted to play a record without turning off, you lift this up and swing it out of the way. Now it's held high, and if it's held high, the record player never knows that there isn't a record to play or a record to drop, so it'll just keep playing. It will come over, finish, go back, come back, play the same record. Just keep doing this over and over if you leave this up. Okay, I think we're ready. Let's put some power on it. Okay, we're going through the dim bulbs. We may see that when I go to turn this on. The bulbs may come on. They may not. Here we go. Oh, it's already in the on. Oh, it's this way. On and off the other way around. So there we are. Our record player is going. Now, how come the arm didn't come up and go over? Shouldn't that have? I'm just listening to it also. So the problem with rim drive record players, these old record players, is they're mechanically noisy. The motor makes a bit of noise. The drive mechanism can make a little bit of noise. And it's all transmitted right into the platter. And the record is sitting on the platter. And the needle's on the record. So the needle will hear all this stuff. So generally in a rim drive record player, you find those in stereos that do not offer much bass response, because you'll hear this if it does. This console has great big honking oval speakers in it and produces a lot of bass. So a little curious about how all this is working. Depends on the type of cartridge too. The cartridge could be a crystal cartridge. They don't have the response, the low end response, so it's perfectly good with a rim drive. They usually go together with a rim drive record player for that reason. And also the stereo and the speakers, they're all sized for no bass, for no deep bass. Okay, how come it didn't go over? Let's see if it'll shut itself off. Okay, so a couple very important observations. First one is the platter has stalled, but the motor's running. You can hear it. Just get past this. Is the hard part here. I want to see if it's going to shut off. Uh-oh. Yeah, so it thinks it's playing a record. Thinks it's playing a 10-inch record. The reason for that is the record size sensors haven't been activated. There's one sensor here. A little hard to see it there. When you put a 12-inch record on it, as it drops, it kicks this like that. That's all it takes to tell the mechanism it's a 12-inch record. If it doesn't kick this, the record player will lift this up to feel if there's a record here. If there's no record there, then it assumes it must be a 45 or a 8-inch, 6-inch. I don't know what the sizes are. Installing again, which is generally a lubrication issue in the drive mechanism, or it could be. I didn't want it to do that. Could be other things. I forgot what I was talking about. Should shut itself off this time. It did it. So it was able to work this mechanism, even though I'm helping it here. Okay, I'm going to take a little break, and the next thing we're going to do is take this, start the maintenance process here. We're going to, there's a clip in there I'm going to take off. I think this is loose. Yeah, this is just loose here. This isn't even attached well. There's a clip inside here, and I take it off. We can get this whole platter off and look at what's underneath. Start working on that. Okay, let's take a close look at the ring before we start poking around with it. Yeah. There's different ways this is done. So this one is just a simple sort of like a spring ring, we call it really. A lot of these have a C clamp. There's an open end there, and over here is an opportunity to stick a tool in and yank that thing upwards. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put a tool in and yank that thing upwards. Now, fortunately, I've reorganized my tools a bit. Oh, here they are. I don't think I'll be able to find the thing I'm after. Let's see what we can do with these bad boys here. May not be able to do anything. Oh, ring the bell. There we go. Okay, so here's the ring, which I must not lose. So I will cleverly keep it in my hand until I find... Oh, once again, I've reorganized my shop and I don't know where anything is anymore. Here we are. Right here. There we are. The cup of parts. Now this should come right up, but it may not. This may be a struggle. Let's find out. Oh, it's coming right up. Easy as can be. And off. There we go. Whoa, 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 what's that? Whoa, split ring. Where did that come from? Okay, it's shaped in a particular way too. Shoot, don't like it when that happens. I wasn't expecting that. I think that was fitted right inside there. How did it come out? Where did it come from? Okay, into the bucket. We'll worry about it later. So notice a couple things about this. First of all, the geared teeth and this funny shape. This thing. What's that doing there? You'll find out. That's part of the velocity trigger system. So here you have the drive wheel. Proper name for that, by the way, is intermediate wheel. It sits intermediate between the motor and the rim of the platter, which I took off. But often this is called the idler wheel, but there's nothing idling about it. It's spring loaded. I'm checking the strength of the spring. The spring, you can't quite see it, I don't think. It's just down under here running this way. So it's pulling this wheel this way. And that's wedging the wheel between the spindle here on the motor and the edge of the rim, which would probably be out just a wee bit like this. And that gives it its drive traction. Now we're going to test the rubber here and see if it's gone hard or if it's still good. So I use my thumbnail, my little thumbnail, and I just run it along and ask yourself, does that feel slippery or does that feel grippy? That feels a little slippery. Another observation is I can see that it's shiny. I can see this. So we're going to take a closer look at this wheel, because remember when the machine was running and it got to the hard part, which is picking up this tone arm and returning it, it cacked out. You can still hear the motor spinning. So the motor continued spinning against this surface because of lack of traction, or possibly, but not likely, this was still spinning and just sliding against the rim. That's a little less likely. See the different sizes here? I'm going to change the speed and watch what this wheel does. Now that's a lot more complicated than you think. But let me put the close-up on here so we can really watch this exciting action. And you gotta hand it to the engineers. Now they didn't come up with this kind of thing, immediately. This is after years of slow record development in that. So we're going to want to change the height of this wheel so it engages with the motor at these different heights. Now I'm going to switch it to another speed. See, we're going up. Going up is easy. Going up, you just go up and fall on the next one. But now, if you try to go down, you get caught on this edge. So when you go down in speed, the mechanism actually pulls the wheel away. Isn't that cool? Pulls the wheel away. But goes up. Whoops, got my camera shaking there. When it goes up, it just goes up and falls to the next level. There's a little more going on here than you might have imagined. Now we're getting a closer look at the wheel too. Now you can see that there's, looks almost like a surface was mounted on this, and that's possible. This may be a special surface as opposed to the bulk of the rubber. I don't know for sure. You don't see that very often, but you see it's absolutely consistent. Kind of consistent all the way around. Some of the things that can go wrong here, one of the typical ones is the motor supports, which are often made of rubber. This motor is bolted solid. Let me change this a little bit. This motor is bolted solid to what's called the deck. This is called the deck. Often these are rubber grommets in here, and these rubber grommets give out over time, and as they give out, the motor's position begins to change. In this case, it would sink down. The result of that is when you select a certain speed over here, you don't get what you selected. Or worse yet, you can get this wheel to run half on two different speeds. Like it can be right on the edge here, and then you get really weird speeds and behavior. And the solution there is to replace the grommets, but that's not the case in this record player. And you can see that this is mating up just perfectly. Let's just look at it again. Make sure each speed is right in the speed thing, not touching the bottom collar here, because that would cause speed problems. Perfect. This is just working perfectly. Of course, the biggest size is the fastest speed, so that's the 78. And that's the 33. 16. I have a 16 speed record, which I'll have to bring in and show you. You're not going to play it on this record player though. Otherwise, who's got a 16 speed record player? Record rather. So this is all working pretty good. I'm not seeing anything particular. We have a chance here to check the motor bearings a little bit. Let's spin this. It stopped fairly quick. But it didn't stop like a brake is on it. So that's probably just lubrication that's not as lubey as it should be. That's not bad. But I'm not sure what the spring part is down there. Yeah, I don't know why that's there. Okay, so we want to check the quality of this surface. It does seem to be polished. I mean, if you look over here, you see the mirror look of it. It shouldn't look like that. So there are chemicals that you can put on here that supposedly rejuvenate it. I've never personally tried that. I have some doubts about it myself, but there's just, you know, ooh, I didn't get a chance to say that story. So when you pop off these E-clamps, they can go flying. I wasn't going to say that just before I popped it off, and it went flying, but I managed to find it. Okay, now can be washers on this. You see there's one on the top, or is it two? Sometimes the washers are used as the fine adjustment in the height. Also, when you pick it up, the washers can stick to the bottom, but as you take it away, the washer can fall off and disappear. You never knew it was there. How come this is not coming right off? Okay, so I turn it over, I lose the top washers. So is that a washer? I don't think so. I think that's a brass fitting. And this, is that a washer? There's no plastic washers underneath. There's this one on the top here. It is just one. Okay, one on the top. Yeah, that's not a washer. That's a solid. Oh, you can see it in the camera quite clearly. Okay, so we're interested in the surface here. I've definitely seen worse. I've seen shiny, really shiny ones. It's pretty shiny. Let's get a feel for the. You can get replacements for these, but there's a certain size for every record player. So there's like 40 million of these different sized wheels out there, but you can sometimes get a replacement for it. Okay, now we're going to do a better check. No, the grip is bad. So when I drag my nail on it like this, if it's good, my nail would not move. I would not move. I would stick and go like this. So this is definitely, yeah, for sure. We're going to have to grind this. This is the approach I take. Maybe it's, I don't know, is it controversial? I don't know. Other people would use a chemical on here and try to rejuvenate it. Let's just consider that for a minute here. So I've got, goodness knows, 60 years old or something. It's still liquidy in there. It's just really thick. What is this? Phono non-slip compound. Keeps idler wheels and drives from slipping. But I'm not inclined to put this kind of juice on stuff. Directions for use. Apply to phono drive contact surface. Turn on record player and let run for 2 or 3 minutes. Avoid getting this compound into bearing surfaces or on shafts. GC Electronics, a division of Hydrometals, Rockford, Illinois. Danger. Flammable mixture. Do not use near fire or flame. Keep out of reach of children. Use only with adequate ventilation. Avoid prolonged or repeated breathing of vapor. Do not take internally. May be harmful if swallowed. Contains denatured alcohol. So yeah, I don't want to use that kind of stuff. Hey, what about this one? Non-slip. So I've never studied these chemicals. That's why I'm doing it. I have them. I've never looked at them carefully. I'm doing that now. For record changer, we in North America, we call these record players. A record player won't drop records. It's a record changer that drops the records. This is a record changer, but we don't say that. For record changers and tape recorders, drives and belts, restores gripping surfaces. Harmful or fatal if swallowed. Read precautions. Directions. Directions. Got something. You can imagine what it says here. Half the words are missing. Allows several minutes, probably before turning on units. Probably what it says there. This probably says danger. Swallow. Do not induce vomiting. Call a physician immediately. That's not going to work here in Canada. Sparks, flames. I'm only kidding about that. We have a 911 number you could call. Closed container after each adequate ventilation. Contains toluene and trichloroethylene. Happy stuff. Nothing like a bit of toluene in the morning. And do I have another one? I have another one. But this I think, phono non-slip. Keeps idler wheels and drives from slipping. Is this the same as the first one? GC. No, this is made by another company. Apply to phono drive contact surface. Turn on record player 2 to 3 minutes. Avoid getting compound. This is the same instructions as that other one, so I think it's the same stuff. Oh, this is really liquid. So I don't think this has ever been opened, and I'm not going to open it. I'm not going to do this. I have a different approach. I think, putting those compounds on might work for a while. I have no experience with them, so I really have no valid opinion. But I think if you want a longer lasting solution, my crude and rugged approach is better, which we're going to now do on this guy. The other reason, along with slipping on this wheel, for the drive to stall and the mechanism to not make it, is insufficient lubrication or sticky parts underneath. All these things that are being driven are all adding up, right? All the frictions and all the stuff, it all adds up. So general lubrication underneath, when we get back to that, will probably, if just doing this doesn't solve it, and it definitely does need lubrication in any case. Okay, I'm going to stop for a few minutes for a bit of coffee. Okay, so step one is find a nut and screw that will pass through the hole here. It's a pretty small hole. Oh boy, I've got a small one here, and it's got to stick out a fair bit. Oh, this one I think will do it. Oh boy, even that won't go. Uh-oh. I may have to stop the video and hunt down a appropriate screw here. I don't know if that's long enough. Go through. Won't stick out enough? I don't think it's going to stick out enough. Well, that's too big. Yeah. So what I do in my screw collection here is what's wrong with that one? Oh, it didn't stick out enough. Right. And that one, that's the same as that other one. It probably is the other one. I keep a set of screws with their nuts on them. This one's gonna work. No, it won't work. Smokes. Just because it's very handy in situations just like this. Except it's not working out. Here's one. A really small one here. Oh, that's got to fit. Okay. Pretty tiny guy. Wow. Well, let's try it. You'll see why I need some sticking out here. Ooh, that's very, very tiny. So this has to lock pretty good to the wheel here. Little tiny Phillips. Oh boy, this is a big one. Yeah, that'll do it. Okay, so I'm gonna lock this on here. Now we take the drill, lock it in the drill. So this procedure might be controversial for some people. I mean, look at this and go, oh my God, what are you doing? I've done this many times. And it's worked out fine every time. So I'm going to grind off just this hard layer here. And it should come off. Also, when you're doing this, you can watch the debris building up on the sandpaper. You can tell when you get to the rubbery stuff, it stops sanding. The rubbery stuff, only the hard stuff comes off easily. It spun. I don't know, boy. Maybe if I turn this the other way, spin it the other way. Ah, let's lose this guy. Can't do that. Oh, it just came totally loose. You need to put a lock washer underneath this nut. So I usually don't have this particular problem. We'll try spinning it the other way and maybe it'll it'll tighten up instead of loosening off. Nope. Okay. I will stop the video. I will find a screw. You see what I'm doing now, so I'll just find a better screw for it. Okay, same screw, lock washer on both sides. Lock washers. Came loose again. Let's reverse the direction. I don't think I can tighten it up. Can't do that. Ah. Well, stop the video again. I think I need a better screw for sure. Okay, same screw and nut, washers and all, just turning the other direction. Okay, so now you might be saying, oh my God, you're changing the outside dimension of this wheel. That's going to change the speed of the record player. But it won't. The dimension of this wheel doesn't control the speed at all. This could be half the size or twice the size. The thing would run the same speed. Of course, you wouldn't fit it in there. This is designed for this particular diameter. Okay, now we do the nail test. It's definitely better. And we do the close-up examination test. It's not really a test. Looks very good to me now. Let's just, because I got it here, let's just grind this a little more. Yeah, there's not a lot coming off it anymore, so we're going to call that good. Let's see if I can get this undone now. Oops. I may have wrecked up the screw, but I don't really care. Nope. Remember how this went? No washers underneath. Doesn't turn very freely. It's okay. And we'll put this lock washer on it. So first the brown washer. Now, so putting on these C-clamps, these are called, they look like C's to me, but they're called E-clamps, oddly enough. Putting these on, there's a high risk of having it fly off. Now I have a technique that I practice here. If you're really careful about it, it pops on like that. But if you aren't, fling, and it's gone in your shop. Who knows where. Okay, we need to put the platter back on top to test this out. So when you put the platter down, the wheel is often in the way here. And so it comes down and it won't go down. If you just turn it a bit, it'll kind of sweep the wheel away and down she'll go. Okay, I think we're ready. Not playing a record, and we have this in a protected way, so there's little risk of damaging. But you could damaging the needle. But you can see if this ever came over, sat on here, and got to one of these holes, it's gonna rip the needle right off. Okay, and the current status is. I don't like that sound. It should be silent. Something appears to be dragging on it. But that's okay. It's not operating the mechanism. It's fairly free. Some of these guys have brakes. This doesn't turn back. This isn't fully off. Hey, let's not worry about it. Power on. Okay. Now with this up, it thinks there's a record to drop, so it'll attempt to play it. It'll attempt to drop it, and then it'll attempt to play it. I'll catch the tone arm on the way over. Where'd that come from? Wasn't I giving a big story about how these things can come off? Goes on the wheel somewhere. Goes on the... Yeah, I was telling a story, and then I end up... How ironic. Okay, here we go. Over she comes. It's going to come all the way in because it thinks it's just a little record. I'm going to catch it. Did you see any slowdown in the movement of the platter? I didn't see anything. Now it's a harder go to return it, so let's see what happens when we go over here. See any slowdown at all? Nothing. Now it thinks again. Ooh, it thinks there's a record here. So if we do this, and we give it the opportunity, it will shut itself off. Well, that's fantastic. I haven't even lubricated anything, and it's operating now. Very, very good. So the next step is, what about the needle? What about the cartridge? to figure that out, I need to connect the output of the record player, this guy here, over to my sound system so we can hear it. So I'm going to stop and I don't know, I'm going to continue on today. Let me just check and see how far into this we are. Okay, I think now is a good time to stop for today. There's some of my wife's flowers. She's been growing lots of flowers this summer, and so we have flowers all over the place. There they are. Some of them anyway. Tomorrow I carry on with the general lubrication, which I should still do, and we'll figure out about the cartridge and the needle. For all we know, it works fine. I don't think so, because I looked at the needle with a magnifier. It didn't look too good, but we have to look at it under a microscope to really know. So that's for tomorrow, and we'll see how this thing sounds. Great. Thanks a lot for watching, and see you on the next video. Have a great day.